Hello and welcome to episode 521 of the Awesome Comics Podcast, a place with a small press makes one hell of a big noise. My name is Vince Hunt. I need a new office chair because my one's creaking like an old pirate ship. And joining me as always is the creator of the epic webcomic series and artist of many a comic, Mr. Dan Butcher.
Hello.
And a man whose hair is always on point, as is his style, his sweet, sweet style. And he smells like marshmallows. It's Tony Esmond.
Thank you. It was very nice of you this week.
Yeah.
I haven't washed my hair today, but it's still looking quite good.
Yeah.
Great.
Look at the grey there coming in there.
Oh, nice. Look, distinguished. Distinguished. Yeah.
Exactly.
I was in a taxi just the other day. Got picked up from the hotel.
Quite fancy, Dan.
And I know. It was very nice. It was very cleaned. It was air conditioned, and it also smelled like marzipan. And I really like marzipan.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
And I was absolutely fucking. I really wanted some Battenberg by the time I got to the hotel.
Batten what?
You heard me. You know. Dan, you look perplexed. I mean, have you never
not mad on marzipan?
No? The show is falling apart before.
Who are you?
I've got the ship to be rent asunder by my.
Oh my!
I'm not mad on marzipan.
Oh my!
So when we reach our 10-year anniversary, which is coming soon,
we're gonna have to cancel the cake, Tony, because you know.
Oh fucking hell!
It's 75% marzipan.
Well, it's 5% marzipan and 95% Elena Eleniak.
Good ratio.
Classic scene.
I've been, as an aside, getting my head back into like writing Viper 3. So I don't know about you guys. I have to kind of immerse myself in what I'm kind of writing.
Oh my
kind of
god! Yeah, totally. Like for instance, music and
wandering the streets of Godstone.
Leather jacket and spray on jeans.
A lot of like 80s stuff, and I realised like the 80s I'm kind of referring to doesn't exist because the 80s in the UK we had was like fucking awful TV.
Just
shit.
Some good music.
What we saw was the hyper realistic 80s LA, wasn't it?
So like I've been watching Miami Vice, A-Team, and there's a scene that come on. It fucking cracked me up. It's an episode called Bullets and Bikinis. And the A-Team get contacted by two girls who run in a beachfront hotel, and they're being terrorized by like thugs, and they want to kind of force them to sell it. So the girls hand over ownership of the hotel for the A-Team to run. So obviously, Face immediately has all the girls in the waitress in bikinis, like serving drinks.
Where did you get this? I want to watch it.
You can find it if you go to
were you watching the right A-Team? Because that doesn't sound.
Yeah, go to Internet Archive. They got all the
what?
episodes of the A-Team. So the two sisters walk up, fucking burst out laughing this, and they say, "Oh, you got all the girls in bikinis. Like, why don't you just run a wet t-shirt competition?" Face. He goes, "That's at 3:00." And I told someone I work with, and they said that's the kind of line you'd put in one of your comics. I was like, is that good? Because that's like 40-year-old writing. But it does mean I'm going to catch you.
You're going to absolutely use it. You're going to absolutely use it.
I'm not going to use that line because it's gold.
Yeah.
But I was like,
I mean, obviously, like, when we write these sort of comics, and Viper is completely over the top. I mean, that's the beauty of it. You know, the sort of the neon, the synth, I can hear saxophones as the explosions are going off when I'm reading it. So as you're consuming all of that and you're watching all the movies, you're my expert I need to go to, so I need to ask you this, Dan. It's always bothered me, okay? I just don't know why. If you cut part of your pizza off with a pair of scissors, does that add anything to the flavour?
See, someone was talking about this today, saying like in Cobra cutting the pizza.
You're
talking about that scene to this day.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's a genius. If you think about it, like Stallone is a genius.
Why are you doing that?
He does have a very high IQ as well, Stallone. He is a very intelligent man. But we are still talking about it.
Yeah.
But we're also talking about a lot of things in history that aren't necessarily great things.
True.
But it is just a random choice.
Yeah.
I tell you this,
his gun cleaning kit in
he doesn't obey
rules.
Yeah. I will say, when I was a kid and I first watched this, naughty shouldn't have because it's an 18 certificate.
You watched those films back in those days.
Yeah, fucking I was watching it all the time. I just didn't notice it. You don't pay attention when you're a kid, and you just watch all this stuff.
I have a theory that feels like a giallo. That movie.
Yeah,
it's such a weird, strange movie feel to it.
Yeah.
Like watching a
Especially all
giallo.
the murders with the guy with that fucking knife.
Yeah, it's an LA cocaine giallo. That one.
Yeah,
that is a real sort of Because who's the director of that? Was that the?
I don't know.
Oh, I think was it that George, a Greek guy that was he directed Tombstone as well. See, we could be on a
okay.
Yeah.
It's got his missus in it as well, isn't it? She's in it.
Yeah, she's in it.
Yeah.
There's a bit at the beginning where there's that guy holding up the supermarket and he goes, I'm going to kill everyone in here. I'm going to blow this whole place up. He goes, go ahead. Don't shop here.
I'm going to rewatch that this week.
Yeah, it's a fun film.
He's just got
that needs a comic. Needs a comic.
He's just got the most amazing.
Remember, you got me those 2 issues of that underground.
Of course, fucking hell, I forgot about that. I got them in on Glen for you. Yeah.
There was an interesting scene which I can't talk about on this show because it's even too much for us.
And what is the name of that character's?
Marion Cabretti.
I mean, is there anything more 80s?
That's why I called my one's Sloane Viperini.
Yeah,
it's just,
it's in the DNA. And I'll tell you what else is in the DNA, especially of sci-fi as we know it. Because there is a character out there. Now people are mad about Star Wars, they're mad about Star Trek. There's lots of different sci-fi, but a lot of those creators that created these universes, they were inspired by things that came before. And one of these characters not many people talk about as much as others is Buck Rogers, which is of note because our pals at Green Archer Comics are putting out a Buck Rogers book, and obviously the character is a named character that just hit public domain. So we've been lucky enough to have them back on the show to talk about it. And should we just get into it straight away now? Because I think it's really interesting. And also, Tony, can you do the voice of the little robot from Buck Rogers, please?
You know that I do this voice occasionally, don't you?
Yeah,
so at conventions,
but usually the lights are off.
Ooh, because he has got a head like a penis. Occasionally at conventions, if someone walks past wearing a I don't know, he's dressed as a Jedi, I'll go, biddy, Buck Rogers. Like pretend that's what I do quite a lot.
Yeah.
That's my funny joke.
Yeah.
Imagine it winds certain people up.
Yeah.
If you know the reference, is it Ziggy? Is that his name or something like that?
Tweaky.
Tweaky. That's it. Look it up, listeners. If
there's 2 of them because the thing he wears, that thing on his chest, is a robot and it's like a computer or something.
It's like one of the computer Senate.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. You fucking nerds.
Yeah.
So, should we talk
Who
about?
played that? Was it like a small person, or was it? They played actual.
Fucking, I'm not answering that question.
I tell you what,
because I tell you what,
as we watch Dan walk out on the tightrope by himself.
One fact before we start.
God!
Battlestar Galactica, the thing that the robot dog was a fucking chimpanzee.
No.
There's a chimpanzee in that fucking suit. Yeah.
What? Oh dear.
Isn't it?
Well, as we're really shocked about this, and we need to talk about it more, and
blowing bubbles.
And that's Battlestar Galactica, Dan. This isn't Buck Rogers. You want to hear about Buck Rogers? Listen to this. Okay, this week we are very pleased to be joined by friends of the show. So I don't need to read the right act to them or give them all the instructions they've been on before, and they're friends of the show, and they are the men behind Green Archer Comics, Allan and Ben Liska. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, and thank you for sending us over the Three Timers jacket, which I'm sure sent to all your other guests as well.
Yeah,
it's better than the Two Timers jacket, which is why we're
yeah. That one's got a lot more stains on it.
Yeah, keep leaving it places.
Yeah, but yes, obviously at the moment you've got the Kickstarter's just finished up at the moment. We've given it shout outs and like we've talked about on the show and stuff before, and it does concern a certain character that a lot of our listeners will know, and maybe some people don't. And it's Buck Rogers versus the Cosmic Lords.
Cyberlords.
Cyberlords. Of course it's cyber.
Of course it is.
Yeah. But Buck Rogers immediately rings a bell with a lot of people. But there may be some people who don't know who that character is, because we're always discovering characters with every generation. And so we want to know, who is Buck Rogers? And then, like, what is your relationship and how did you get to be publishing with it? But who is Buck? Who is he?
Ben, do you want to tell the history?
No, I want you to tell the history because this is your baby. I know everyone thinks I'm like deeply involved, but all of a sudden I get a Google Drive link that says, "Hey Ben, take a look at this script." I'm like, Buck Rogers?
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because I know you're the sort of sci-fi prose guy, aren't you, Ben? I
Yes.
sort of presumed it was. Yeah, okay, interesting.
No. This was Allan's baby.
Okay.
So for those of you who don't know, Buck Rogers started out as 2 short stories published in Amazing Stories magazine, written by Philip Nolan. The first was Armageddon 2419 AD, told the origin story of Buck Rogers and how he wound up 500 years in the future because of a mining accident. And then the second story, the Air Lords of Han, is all about Buck Rogers helping this group of rebels using 20th century wit to overcome a superior air force and free these rebels. Nobody noticed the short stories. They went almost nowhere. Nobody even read really Amazing Stories magazine. So, but publisher for a distributor for comic strips into local papers really liked the concept and wanted to turn it into a daily black and white strip. And he did, and that's really where everybody starts to know about it. In fact, Buck Rogers was so popular at its height that even during the Great Depression, people kept their local newspaper subscription because they wanted to know what was going to happen with Buck Rogers the next day. That's how powerful it was. And then, it impacted, George Lucas specifically said that Buck Rogers inspired Star Wars. Gene Roddenberry for Star Trek. Ray Bradbury talks about his love of Buck Rogers. So much of the sci-fi that we have is second or third generation away from the influence of Buck Rogers. That's how impactful that it's been. And so when it went in the public domain, I was really excited to tell a Buck Rogers story.
I think people will sort of think about comparatively with Flash Gordon, don't they? I think mostly because Buster Crabbe played both in the serial. Am I right in saying that?
That is correct. Yeah, good call.
Yeah.
So yeah, we joked. We did a watch along with the Buck Rogers serial a couple weeks, and actually later today we're doing a second one. And we joked that Buster Crabbe must have been the Christopher Pratt of his time because
he was Tarzan as well, wasn't he? I think. Yeah.
And so the Flash Gordon was done in response to Buck Rogers. They saw the success of Buck Rogers, and they're like, "Oh, we need a space guy too." So Flash Gordon was born.
Yeah. So these were like sort of pulpy space opera sort of. It was that kind of a modern kind of hero for those contemporary times, and then just transport them into these crazy sort of science fiction worlds, isn't it?
Exactly, and that was the whole idea. And for a lot of people, it was their first exposure to science fiction. I mean, you had obviously H.G. Wells, and and there were sci-fi authors obviously working at that time, but the masses saw it as Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon. That was their sort of initial exposure. In fact, I made a video the other day about how that Buck Rogers stuff became sort of a catchphrase for people who write esoteric sci-fi. The Ursula Le Guins of the world versus the pulpy trash of the world. And in fact, funny coincidence, in 1977, Jerry Purnell released a book called That Buck Rogers Stuff that specifically talks about how nobody cares about, like sci-fi pulp stuff anymore. And of course, 4 months later, Star Wars came out.
Yeah. I was reading about that. It's funny, the comparisons between Buck Rogers and Star Wars are quite solid because, tell me if I'm wrong here, but before Buck Rogers, we had sort of quite esoteric, edgy sci-fi, and then we got Buck Rogers, and then obviously we got Flash Gordon, and we got all the imitators, and then up until for the period up until Star Wars, we were getting sort of weird, The Man Who Fell to Earth, Clockwork Orange, all this sort of thing, stuff that was quite strange, and they almost brought it back to being like flash bang wallop hit. This is sci-fi for the people.
Because Buck Rogers came up at the time. I mean, what was the other sort of newsstands? Was there a lot of like it was, like pulpy, like the Shadow or things like that? Was it that kind of time when Buck Rogers came? There was a lot of those popular Lone Ranger or the those sort of characters, wasn't it?
Right. So the Lone Ranger definitely came first. But yeah, it was more like that, because like you look at the Shadow, the Green Hornet, and all of those strips started after Buck Rogers. Now they're no relation to the two, and in fact, like the success of Lone Ranger is why we have is why we have the Green Hornet, because they were made by the same creator.
When they're related as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
Isn't one another's uncle or
Distant
something like that? Is
relatives,
this weird sort of link? Yeah,
exactly. So it's I don't know if it's uncle or great uncle, but yeah, right. They have this. They always had the same last name because they were made by the same creator, and then eventually they made that connection.
Right.
In fact, Dynamite did a series. Back in 2016, I think, where the Green Hornet and the Lone Ranger kind of fought, and then because the guy that wrote it also wrote Batman, he tried to shoehorn a Batman connection in there.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Pulps, man. I'm a big Doc Savage fan. It's probably my favorite. The Avenger as well. I like that stuff. Yeah.
I was getting not knowing much of Buck Rogers' lore. With Flash Gordon, you've got like the Abbey of Ming. Does Buck Rogers have that kind of like arch nemesis?
Yeah, so the part that we fixed from the original Buck Rogers story is, remember, this was written in the 1920s, right around the Yellow Scare.
Yeah,
there's a whole lot of racism in the original story.
Fu Manchu's the same, man. Yeah.
The Air Lords of Han.
Yeah, the Air Lords of so it was not just that all Asian people are deceptive and evil, but then all Asian women are sluts and they go from husband to husband and so on. So it was pretty explicit. In fact, in the first story, it was so bad that when they came out with the second story, and by then they were already working on the comic strip and they had to tone it down a little bit, they shoehorned in in the Air Lords of Han, they shoehorned in a plot point that it was aliens that took over the Asian people and made them do it. So it's a really, the whole history behind that, just the history of the whole process behind it is interesting in and of itself.
There was a continuation of the Armageddon book, wasn't there? Done in the, I'm going to say in the 70s or something. Is that right? I was looking out the other day. It's quite well thought of, I think.
Yeah, there absolutely is, and there have been other people that have done that have tried to do more continuations of the original Buck Rogers story, because there's a lot of cool elements in the story. Like, the story has drone warfare. The original story has video conferencing screens and has rocket ships to other planets and all these other things that were just a dream at that time. NASA hadn't even been formed, right? There were thoughts of space exploration, but we were barely flying at this point, much less getting into space.
Yeah.
Well, we had a chat
dreaming,
about,
wasn't it? It was totally dreaming about things.
We had a chat about personal rockets, didn't we, the other day, Alan? Where I said, "Oh, I hope you include those personal rockets." I think we'd spotted online somewhere, and you said that they hadn't reached something you can use yet, time-wise. Is that right? Is that how it's working for you? So you can only use certain things.
Right. So we can only use things that are in the public domain for Buck Rogers.
Okay. So okay, right. Let's get into some of the meat of this. And of course, like, there are some of our listeners who may only know Buck Rogers from like the TV show that was late 70s, early 80s, was it?
Or Duck Rogers. Was that a thing? Duck Rogers. I seem to remember that.
Yeah. So it's one of those characters. The name has a history to itself. But like,
which for a 2-season TV show, they did quite well, because it still sort of lives, doesn't it? Yeah.
Because it's not like I was watching it when I
knew Buck Rogers.
I mean, I didn't watch it when it was out, because I don't think I was about them.
You
really.
weren't born.
I wasn't born then, but it was the heady day of repeats on television and stuff. So you became aware of it when you were a kid and things like that.
And when you're nerds like us, you'd watch anything.
You watch anything.
When there's no sci-fi, and that's what Dan's got a question about later.
Yeah. We'll circle back to that. Put a pin in that.
But this is like obviously going back to the roots of Buck Rogers, like you say, and then it hit the public domain, which is something we've been sort of interested in and wondering sort of how that all works. Because as soon as anything hits a public domain, normally someone will make a terrible horror movie for like £5 and a weekend. That's usually what happens now.
I made this joke in the Slack, but Betty Boop is coming around. And Betty Boop, we joked about this with Ben.
Betty Boo. Is it Betty Boo?
Sorry. Or
is it Betty Boo?
It's Betty Boo is the pop singer who
does
the do.
She's doing the do.
Yeah, she's doing the do. But Betty Boo,
she's coming into public domain, and that I know we're going to get Betty Boop Demon Hunter.
Yeah.
we said something else. We evolved that idea.
Did you? You absolute filth wizards.
Yeah.
But obviously, when a character that has a certain name and then hits the public domain, what does that mean for a fan like you? Because, like you said, Alan, you were like, "Oh, I saw it hit the public domain," and I mean, it's something like, can anyone get hold of this?
Didn't you have to get the rights still? Or, I can't remember how it worked.
All right, so there are a couple of things that are complicated. First of all, in the original stories, which are what we based our comic on, he wasn't ever called Buck. He was William Rogers in the whole thing. So those original stories went into the public domain last year, but we wanted to call him Buck, so we had to wait until the first year of the comic strips were in the public domain.
Yeah.
So now all of that's in the public domain, but what we found out with Buck Rogers is there's an additional complication because there are two companies that have trademarks for Buck Rogers in comics. So the character is in theory in the public domain, but if you call something Buck Rogers, then you run the risk of one of the trademark owners being sued. That's why, like, you can make a Steamboat Willie, but you can't make a Mickey Mouse, even though that's eventually what it became, because Disney owns the trademark on that. Where we are lucky is because there are two companies that claim they have the trademark on it. They are too busy fighting each other, so there isn't an official trademark. So we can make this issue. We may not be able to make future issues depending on if that ever gets sorted out. But
does that mean you have to be really specific with what you're doing, what you're adapting, what you're saying? You have to dot the I's and cross every T to make sure that you can get through.
Right, exactly. So that is, one of the things I didn't realize when we started a comic book company is how many lawyers we were going to need. So, like, we have a trademark lawyer because we trademarked Johnny Dollar and we're trademarking the Green Archer and so on. But we also have a copyright lawyer that's going to make sure that, okay, you can use these things and not use these things. Because we take that very seriously. We don't want, especially using Kickstarter, we don't want to, like, suddenly, we can't deliver our comics to our backers because we have a cease and desist order or something like that. And the way you could normally get around that is you go to the trademark owner and say, hey, we want to make a comic with Buck Rogers and we'll pay you a license fee. But in fact, Greg and Fake were talking about that last week about, the licensing expo in Vegas and so on. So we could pay a licensing fee, but since nobody has the official trademark, there's nobody we can pay a licensing fee to. So we're good to go.
I think it also makes a difference because there are many in like the small press, underground, etc., who do satirical comics. They'll be naming. There are characters that you can quite easily recognise who are in these spoof parody comics. All of these things, but when you're doing something that is supposed to be legitimate, it's going to be legitimate for that character. You have to be on it, don't you? Because you can't get around. Oh, it's just satire. If you're telling a dead straight story. Yeah.
See, and the thing is, people don't realise is satire laws are not the same the world over. You have your satire laws are actually pretty good. We're not. You can be quite litigious around them over here if you did the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, Weird to hear of a country that's more litigious than the U.S.
Yeah, I know, madness. It?
So,
Yeah.
so Ben, when you heard about, like you say, you got the email, check this out, and you went, Buck Rogers. Was there an alarm bell in your head that went, oh, this is going to be, this is going to be
What is he
problematic?
doing? What is he doing now?
That's just my normal state of mind whenever Allan sends me an email or a text or something like that. The other day I was at the office and he says, "Hey, you got a minute?" I was like, "Oh no, this can't be good." Except it's awesome. So, but you guys don't get to know about that yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my first thought was like the TV show, because again, like many of you, my major experience with Buck Rogers has always been the TV show, and I started reading through the script, and I was like, okay, this is completely different. And then I caught up on what was going on, and like got my copy of the Air Lords of Han and all that stuff. So it was a very interesting task trying to like reset my brain to be a post World War One, but AKA the Great War mindset when reading this. So there was, because that's when it took place. So we actually had like a big miss on both of our parts. Thank you to our editor for catching it about, oh yeah, you don't call it World War One. It's the Great War.
The Great War, yeah.
So I was very excited about it because it gave me a chance to buy a book, gave me an excuse to go buy a book, and I was like, no, this is for Allan, dear. This is work.
This is deductible.
Right? Yeah. Pay no attention to the stacks of unread books in my room. It's fine. But yeah, going back and revisiting those original stories was, like horrific racism aside, it was very interesting. It was very interesting to see all of the sci-fi DNA that's right there in Buck Rogers. Like in the American Rebellions, they have like a quasi socialistic society. I'm like, oh, this is Star Trek. Like this is the Federation's like post scarcity, like everyone does their work type thing. It was
No
very
money
interesting
kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. It was very interesting to see where a lot of this stuff came from. And then I got to watch the serial and I was like, oh wow, there's even more of like original sci-fi DNA. This is amazing. It's been so much fun to go back and look at this and to go and tell Allan he's done stuff wrong. And then
I listened to I don't know if you have Audible over there as an app. Audible have got the radio plays for free on there.
Oh,
and they're a really fun listen because in the middle of it, it'll just without any kind of interruption, they'll just break into an advert, and you're like, why are they talking about fucking cereal now? Oh, it's an advert. It's a bit like that. They've included the adverts in it. Yeah. Really good.
That's cool. Yeah. But yeah, so like it was a lot of fun to do that. It was just, Allan digging up all of these public domain heroes has been a great excuse to go back and like expand both my pulp paperback collection and my comic book collection. So nice. Thank you, Allan. Also, I'll be sending you a bill later.
and I mean, if you don't mind us breaking a little bit of news here,
Please
what
do.
we're working on with Dan for next year is The Saint is going into the public domain.
Oh, interesting.
Actually, the first Saint story has already gone into the public domain, but the stick figure won't go into the public domain until next year, and so we want to make sure we release when we're doing that. So we've been kind of with Dan and with Simon kind of going back and forth on how we retell that story, but bring it up again. We want to tell one today because Dan is tired of drawing things from 1940s.
I don't mind drawing stuff from things in 1940s.
Because we were only talking about the Saint about a month or so ago, Vince, when we were sort of talking about it.
Was that when we were talking about that Roger Moore documentary, wasn't it?
That's it. But the thing is with the Saint, he sold more paperbacks than fucking God.
Yeah,
that was incredible business of them, and there's been two very popular TV series over here. Ian Ogilvy was in the remake in the late 70s, I think. It's a really good series.
All it takes is like a few decades, and people forget what a juggernaut something is.
Yeah.
In like popular culture.
No, I've got a theory. Sorry, go on, mate. Go on. Sorry.
No, I was going to say, and that's what's happened with Buck Rogers, right? Unless you watch that TV show, you probably don't understand how powerful Buck Rogers was at the time. So, I'm sorry, what was your theory, Tony?
Well, I have a theory. Now, an offshoot of this theory is that you got me to spend loads of money recently, and and it's just purely from a single comment on our Slack where you went, "Who's interested in now comics?" or something like that. Was it? I think you said, which got me thinking. I mentioned about Rust, which got me thinking about all the gaps in my collection that got me buying things from eBay in the States, which is never a fucking cheap
Alan,
option.
you evil man.
He's done me there. But now I know that company produced a number of pulp characters, and I'm not gonna ask you to say anything, but was that your interest in that company? Was it from a professional point of view or just a collector point of view?
Both.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so it is, so I love the Green Hornet, and I want to read every Green Hornet I can get my hands on. And so, and like, I'm excited that Dynamite is keeping the Green Hornet stories alive.
Yeah.
And that they put Alex Segura on that, who I think is an excellent writer, although he writes everything now. So I feel
Right.
like
Okay.
getting overtasked, like the way Joshua Williamson or
Yeah.
and some of these other writers are.
They're putting out that Fury with the Fury series at the moment. I'm buying it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's right. So that is, and Miss Fury is fully public domain, which is interesting. So you could do a Miss Fury story. The character never really did anything for me, so I didn't.
She's very much a Catwoman in a way.
Yeah. And so yeah, so for me, certainly a collector, but I'm also interested in how they tell stories and how those stories reflect their own times. Now Comics did a whole series on Kato because people who knew the Green Hornet from the 1966 TV show knew it because of Bruce Lee, and so Kato was more popular than Van Williams, who played Green Hornet, was, and so people want a Kato comic in the 80s.
Yeah, and I think that continued for a while. Didn't Dynamite do a Kato series as well? Yeah, I think the only Green Hornet we really had access to here for that TV series was the crossover with Batman.
Yeah,
that was really the main one we saw.
We?
Yeah, I don't think we did. Cool. Yeah. I've got some DVDs since, but yeah, interesting. Yeah, good. I'm a fan. Well, I know, Ben, you talk a lot on one of the main channels you're active on is our sort of non-comic book channel. Are you a pulp fan? Are you as well, or?
Yes, I'm actually kind of rediscovering them, as it were, going back reading the original Robert E. Howard Conan stories.
Amazing.
Some of
my favorites.
They are so good. Like just the
dark as well. Some of them.
Yeah, they really are. And like I've read a couple of Doc Savage paperbacks. Some probably when we make our appearance at Pulp Fest, there will probably be some money changing hands and some books coming home. So I'll probably stock up on stuff there. I went and I picked up a couple of Lee Brackett paperbacks. Lee did the original script for The Empire Strikes Back, which they tore apart and put back together. But Lee Brackett did the original script for that, and pulp sci-fi fantasy writer, and it's a lot of Sword and Planet stuff too. So that's always neat. I picked up a set of John Carter paperbacks. Just going back in, and like some of that started with the new Conan comic that's out right now, which is fantastic. It is just fantastic across the board. I love it. So I'm like, yep, I'm Conan guy now.
I think you can compare a lot of, for example, Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon to John Carter from Edgar Rice Burroughs, because it's a man out of time, isn't it? It's a man displaced. I think there's a little bit of that there as well somehow.
Yeah, it's got that, and it's a genre I kind of love. Like even when it appears normally, it's like a displaced person figuring out how the universe works and kind of bending it to his will. Like I'm going to make this work, and just watching like the process as the character figures that out is always fascinating.
But also the main character, the main character is also the reader. Because the main character is discovering the universe, and
we're them, aren't we? Yeah, that's the good thing about it.
Yeah,
even in the TV series, they got that right, didn't they? Because they played heavily on the man out of time. That was in the credits at each episode, wasn't it, and stuff like that. Yeah. Dan, is it time?
Yeah, they always have the kind of the strong. I say strong, the female kind of characters in there. So it's kind of you can have a choice between Wilma Deering or Princess. Is it Adala?
Adala, yeah.
Adala.
Who you siding with, Ben? Ben first.
Oh, okay. You're gonna put me on the spot first.
Yeah, Matt's definitely.
Assuming that I am unwed.
Yes.
Of course.
Or just pretending,
of course. Just
you're a man out of time.
Right. If my wife or my mother happens to listen to this, I'm gonna have to go with Princess Adara just because of the outfits. I'm sorry.
So
I'm sorry.
One for $1.
It's one of those like core memories. You're like, oh, okay, hello.
I am a man.
we've been swapping around the disco dancing scene a few times today, of them like getting it on. Gilles Gerard is not a great dancer, but he gets it going.
Yeah.
Alan.
No question. Wilma Deering. I am a selfish SOB, and I want somebody who's had a scrappy life and had to be a rebel. In the original story, not in the TV show, but in the original story, she's a rebel. She's had a scrappy life, and so she's not going to expect me to wait on her hand and foot. But the princess has had everything handed to her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Me
so
and
you made a good
Tony's gone
case.
for Adala. I've gone for Wilma, so it's all up to you, Vince.
Vince,
You're
you're
No.
Yes.
Oh.
Choice.
Oh.
Yes or no? Come on. You can do it.
It's $1, isn't it? Because
Hey!
it's just. What does that say about me? What does that say about me?
My phrase was Wilma in the streets, $1 in the sheets.
And that's in a
Had to bring the
non-sexist
tone
way.
down, didn't we?
Yeah,
No.
you know it.
Yeah.
It hasn't been quite brought down yet, but yeah, I've got a suggestion later.
Is the Princess Adala a character included in the
you've
rights
got?
package you've got?
No, not yet.
Okay, but she's in the original sort of thing. Is she wasn't just created for the TV series? I'm guessing.
No. You'll when they started doing the Sunday strips, they had more. They brought in more characters like her. When they could draw them in color. But I will say, for poor Wilma Deering, because in the
he won't let it go, will he? He won't let it go.
No. And to be fair, he's won me over. I'm retroactively changing my vote. I'm changing my vote.
In the original story, like Ben said, it's an egalitarian society, so the women and men are treated equal. The women go to war just like the men, etc. And Buck is really impressed with that. Then they started the comic strips, and every chance they could get to disrobe as much of Wilma as they could without violating whatever censor rules were at the time for your daily papers. They definitely took advantage of that. They'd crash land, and suddenly, Wilma's lost half her clothes as they're trying to survive in the jungle or whatever.
It's like watching MASH and Hot Lips, rest in peace, was in a towel. It's like, oh, it must be Sweeps Week. They're trying to get yours.
Yeah. Quick, it's like the equivalent of quick, take your clothes off before they freeze on you.
Yeah.
That scene, that favourite scene of ours.
Yeah. Before the temperature rises any further, this is a sexy episode of the Awesome. But just back to like the public domain thing, because one thing I always wondered, like, when you have almost control, or you can do a book like a public domain book, what does that mean that you own or you have the rights to? Because some people may think, oh, it's public domain, I now own that character. But it's not, is it? There's lots more to it. So what is it exactly?
So that's why we trademarked Johnny Dollar, because we wanted to be the ones who do Johnny Dollar comic books. But for things like the Clock and the Press Guardian, we don't have a trademark on that. So what we own is what we create, and our copyright specifically says the Press Guardian is in the public domain, the Clock is in the public domain. Any art and words that we did are ours, and we then file that with the Copyright Office in the U.S. Now, that's not necessarily going to mean somebody in China can't copy everything we did. Yeah. But for the Press Guardian and Clock 1942, we want all of Dan's artwork to be covered. So we do copyright the books, We just can't copyright the characters. And you're absolutely right, Vince. Somebody could go out and make a Press Guardian. In fact, I wish they would go make a Press Guardian book or a clock book, or because we only have so much money and so much time. We can only make so many of them. And I think there are interesting stories to tell with these. So, yeah.
One of the other things with the public domain characters, obviously, you've got like a baked-in hardcore audience of people who like these characters. Do you feel a certain kind of reverence of kind of like doing it justice, as it were, and making sure you tick the boxes that the fans that you are also kind of serviced?
Yeah, that's why we only do public domain characters that we love. Like, if we can't get excited about it, then what's the point? There are thousands of public domain characters out there. Most of them aren't interesting to us. We want something that has meaning, that has a story that we like, and that we can tell that story and make it feel like the original. But the best compliments that I think we've gotten on our Johnny Dollar is that it feels like a modern Johnny Dollar story. Like, we're not trying to change the characters. In fact, like with the Press Guardian, the reason that when we tell the new stories, we have different characters is because we want the original characters to be the original characters, and then our new clock and the new Press Guardian to be different from them.
Yeah. Are there any that you've got your eye on that maybe you don't want to say actually, but are there any sort of that are wheeling round to us soon that you think that would be good? I know you've just mentioned one, but are there any? I mean, I'm trying to think who I would love to write, and a lot of it comes back to the people we experienced when we were children, I guess, isn't it? Or the characters we experienced.
I think also, I guess with some of these bigger names, like when you think of like. Normally, when we think of public domain, I think pulp and public domain are always linked, aren't they? Because
they are at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah. And when we think of pulp, normally we're talking about a lot of characters that are either Dynamite or Mad Cave. They've been snapping up, and I'm guessing they have trademarks. They must have jumped in and got that, so they are the only people that can do those books. Is that
so? I don't know, and I don't want to challenge it in court because we don't have that kind of money. But in theory, even if somebody has a trademark, you should be able to do a comic. But I just don't want to test that. Fair enough. And I love Mad Cave and I love Dynamite, and I don't want to get sued by them. But there are some things that I would love to do. The Shadow goes into public domain January 1st, 2027 in the US.
Wow,
that
okay.
would be a really cool one to be able to do. Because, again, those Shadow stories are so interesting to me.
Alan Henderson, if you're listening to this.
Yeah, we know the man. He's got the. Alan's a massive.
Do something with that information. Right.
Yeah. I'm actually I haven't put this to Falpy yet, but me and Falpy are available if you ever want to do a comic called Fuck Rogers. So we are available, very reasonable rates.
That is our fallback if we don't start making more money from selling the legit comics.
Go blue.
The Kickstarts for Filth are very popular.
Right. But I think if we did a double feature of Betty Gets Booped and Fuck Rogers, we would
Betty Gets
Booped. Writes itself. Yeah.
We've got Flesh Gordon. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That might still be copyrighted by the movie. So so we have
there's two of them.
Dan, stop making that comic now. Cut it.
Yeah. Scribble out the Penosaurus from Mars.
That's interesting because then you could just anyone could just go and make a public domain character comic, but like I said, the worry is that you kind of do something that gets the eye of a big boy, and they sort of come after.
You've got to have something to say as well, haven't you? Really, you've got.
Don't just turn it out.
It could just be like people that are unscrupulous. They'll just make any old comic just to if they think they're going to get an audience and a few sales out of it, they would just co-opt.
There's got to be a fairness thing going on as well. I'm guessing it's 100 years. 100 years is the people who created are not going to be about.
It's 95 years,
95, right? Okay.
In the US, at least.
Yeah. Interesting.
And that's all because of Disney, because it used to be 50 years, and then Disney kept pushing.
Well, I heard Disney and the Beatles were the two. I heard the Beatles was part of it. Yeah, they may have been part of it because that was a big thing McCartney was up against for a while. Yeah.
We did get a question on the Slack regarding characters popping into copyright, but I couldn't tell you anything.
I've got a Scooby Doo, man. Yeah.
I mean, what the Disney lawyers going to pull out their back pocket, or
Right.
Warner Brother Media, whatever.
Well,
to
and
keep
that's the
these
thing.
characters
Just because
relevant.
just because you legally can do it doesn't mean that you're
Yeah.
not going to get sued by somebody.
Yeah.
And you have
Yeah.
to have that prep. You know, if we had to shut everything down because we got a cease and desist, you know, we would just have to refund the money, which would suck because we've paid for the comic
Yeah.
and paid for paid all the artists and everything. But I mean, I would do that, right? Because I don't think we could afford a full lawsuit against
battle.
whoever it is
Yeah.
that wanted to sue
I
us.
mean, it's like the comic industry and like especially the small press independent. They're almost like a stealth bomber flying just under the radar for a lot of it because the big companies, yeah, that's not where money is. Do you know what I mean? It's not video games. It's not movies. There's not much money in that. There's not much money to be made. Rarely, like you hear of. I mean, there's a link to unauthorized fan art and prints and sold at conventions. It's the same thing, isn't it? You're taking someone else's IP and doing something with it. Probably 75% of the time, we've all been at conventions and seen loads of it, and no one's shutting it down. And then occasionally, a hammer comes down and sort of says, "Stop it."
Yeah, I get questions about this all the time because obviously I use famous people in my comics, and I get all these sort of questions of sort of people who dive bomb into me who I've never heard of before, asking me, what do you do? How are you getting around? Using a real likeness and stuff like that. And my answer is always, I don't care.
I've got to stop trying to drink whenever Tony talks.
I mean, they do.
Yeah, go on, mate. Sorry.
I'll tell you. No, I said they do have standing things at cons saying you shouldn't be selling IP of stuff that you don't own.
There was a thing where people would go around years ago. Do you remember they would go around MCM and say, like, you can't sell Deadpool, you can't sell this. That's all. I think that's gone to the wall now. I don't think that happens now. Certainly not in the cons I've been to recently.
Yeah.
And I think part of that is that you look like the bad guy. If it's somebody out there that is selling, if they're doing prints where they're drawing it and all that stuff, you look like the bad guy if you're trying to shut down a guy that's making $200 at a comic book convention or something like that.
I think
it's different if you go on Temu and issue a cease and desist because they're making unauthorized Deadpool plushies or whatever. But
I mean, how far do you go with it? I mean, do you go to comics artists doing commissions and say, "What? No, hang on, you can't draw a cloak and dagger."
Someone tried to make the false equivalence of saying what AI does is just the same as what an artist doing fan art does, and they're completely different.
No, completely different.
There's no parallel there. It's,
100%.
Yeah, but like comics are a different kettle of fish, isn't it? Because there's so much more time, effort, hopefully thought going into it, and obviously preparation, and then I mean, at what point when you knew Buck Rogers was coming up and you knew the stories were coming up and then the name, at what point did you start to plan what is the comic? Did you wait until it was the green light was on, or were things already in place?
Because there's a timing issue there, large, isn't there? Yeah.
So we started moving, or I started moving, I should say, as Ben corrected me on. So when I saw that it was in public domain, the first stories went in public domain last year. That's when I kind of started like, all right, do I have anything interesting to say? So the first thing I do is I go and I read the material. Obviously, I love Buck Rogers. I'm familiar with the TV show and the comic strips because I was old enough to have read sort of the last of the comic strips. And I now have stacks and stacks of Buck Rogers comics books, the original stories, some of the pulp stories, and so on. So I'm kind of doing my research, figuring out, is there a different story that we can tell that still stays true to Buck Rogers? And then that kind of circles in my head for months. Like I don't want to just jump into it. And then then by the time I let Ben know, hey, I want to do this, that I've already been thinking about it for months, and then we kind of start to write the story. And this one actually started off as just a short story that we were going to contribute to an anthology. It was just the first 10 pages, and the anthology rejected us. So I said, well, fuck you, I'll make my own comic then. And so we reached out to another author to kind of finish the story. Ben and I came up with the framework, and then reached out to this other author, Chris Field, from Otherverse Games, who also is a big Buck Rogers fan, to kind of finish the story along what we started. And what he did was really seamless. If I didn't just tell you that the first 10 pages were mine, you wouldn't know that there's a difference between what he did and what I did.
I guess we should also mention the art, because for those who don't realize, if you do catch this episode on the first couple of days, you will still have time to back it. But who's drawing your work? Who's cover artists, interiors, etc.?
Okay, so Mark Oliver, who did the Johnny Dollar work, is doing the interior work for us, because he does a really nice job of getting that old school kind of flat feel, which is what we wanted with this. But then so many amazing artists to work with. Absolute favorite. So Kieran Squires, who did Cryptid Hacker Force, came up with a cover for us, and then Andy Cliff, when Kieran reached out to Andy, and Andy was super excited to do a cover. So his cover is absolutely amazing.
He's very on point for that, I think. Yeah.
Great artist for that style.
And if we hit the $3,000 mark, which we're about $500 away, so we probably won't. But if we get lucky and we hit it, he actually came up with a print, and so we'll have that. If we don't hit it, I've already paid for the print, so Ben and I will have a print, and we'll make sure we send you all a copy with your book.
Thank you.
But then, like, Sarah Meyer, who also worked with us on Cryptid Hacker Force, did a cover for this. Philip Sevi, Megan Hong. Is there anybody I'm forgetting? Oh, Keith Williams, who did Spider-Man and the Phantom and all those. He did a black and white cover. And then we actually had somebody who wants to be anonymous, but who is also on the Slack channel, who did the who did the coloring. And we liked both so much that we offered both.
Nice.
And then,
oh wow, okay.
And then this little known artist, Dan Butcher, actually did the logo for us.
Oh, I've heard he's a right hack.
My pleasure.
Yeah, he's a right diva.
I've been working on some Green Archer stuff today. Actually.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
There you go.
Yeah, we have a Green Archer anthology that is coming out in the fall. But these are 3 full-size stories. One written by me, one written by Ben, and one written by Anjali, who lives in the UK, and also did the one of the Johnny Dollar stories. So this is going to be not a graphic novel. I just want to be very clear, because I know how Tony feels about it. It is going to be a 140-page comic book.
Good man.
Yeah.
You've got quite a contingent in the UK, or you originally from the UK as well, including Kieran. Would you consider a Green Archer at a UK con, which necessarily you might not attend, but would be like a outreach for you?
I want to do a UK con so bad. I mean, because we have Cryptid Hacker Forces set in Scotland. We have, of course, the Green Archer is set in Scotland. So I really, really want to do a con. We just have to make enough money to justify it.
Okay, man.
Really
it's difficult,
hard.
Very difficult.
Yeah, so like when we go to cons, we have the advantage of, because I travel so much for my day job, I can use points to pay for the hotels. So we don't have to make as much money as other people do. But I don't got enough points to cover Ben and I and our wives going to.
Ben's got his needs, hasn't he?
Yeah.
The clean up on that hotel room takes some doing.
Oh my god!
Listen, fish and chips can make a mess if you're not careful.
You save that. Yeah, but also it's Indian small press, isn't it? We're
hand to mouth
doing what we can with what we got. One thing I was intrigued by, obviously Buck Rogers is a name that some people would know. In terms of getting the word out and marketing and shouting about this, are there any like pulp communities? Are there any like
Oh, got to be in there.
Discords, Reddit? Are there any communities that you're part of that maybe wouldn't have known about this happening that you've been able to take advantage of?
Yeah, we've done some outreach into like I hate Facebook so much, but Facebook groups, because that's where all the old pulp people are.
True.
So we've done some outreach into there. What we did is Rhonda, who manages our Instagram account, we had completely ignored our Facebook account, and somehow we had like 50 followers on Facebook, and even though we didn't post anything, And nobody that we knew, like none of our friends followed it. So Rhonda started working the Facebook account a couple months ago, and now she's doing the outreach into all the different groups and communities to kind of get the word out, because she can spend the time to be a good member. Like, nobody likes the person who's like, hey, here's my comic, buy this, and then they don't participate. So she can actually take the time to be a good member. Ben and I are already swamped with everything going on in your Slack. We don't got a whole lot of time. Plus, apparently, we have day jobs that we have to do.
Those pesky day jobs.
Nice.
That's so cool.
Tony is just showing on screen. Tony, I'll take a picture of this for the
I'll take a picture.
Substack and the Slack.
The two Buck Rogers in the 25th century is that they brought two books out at the time, by Addison E. Steele. I think
They
that's
look
right.
very crisp and new. Are they new?
Yeah.
No, they're not. No, I've had these since I was a kid. Yeah.
Did you ever read them?
No, they're red. No, they're red. Yeah. They're just brilliant. Yeah. I was banging into it, man. The only problem with Buck Rogers is it clashed with Doctor Who. That was the problem on British television.
Yeah.
They clashed.
You know,
Put him up against one another.
I had that thought when you were talking about, well, it was actually about the Green Hornet, when you were talking about you only saw the Batman special. The only Doctor Who I saw was when my dad was watching it on MPT at 2 a.m. when I came home late, and the 1996 Doctor Who movie on Fox that introduced the Eighth Doctor. And that was
I'm very sorry about that.
And let me tell you something, I love 8. So when he showed up for the 50th, I was like, yes.
Are you on the Big Finish stuff?
No. I'm not that into Doctor Who. But I did enjoy when it was
kink shame me there, Ben. Kink shame me.
No. We don't kink shame. We don't do that.
MPT, for those who don't know, is Maryland Public Television.
Wow. Okay.
There's
Oh, mate.
Green Hornet. They did the Batman crossover TV thing. There's behind the scenes thing of Burt Ward, was it? He was giving it the big one about how he knew karate. Have you heard that story?
Yeah.
Bruce Lee heard about that. It wasn't 2+. It was.
I hadn't heard about that. What was the story?
That Burt Ward, who plays Robin in the TV show, was basically going around because Green Hornet was getting big because of Bruce Lee's and his skills, and he was giving it like, I can do all that karate stuff. And Bruce Lee heard about it, wasn't very happy. So I think when they did the crossover episode, that Burt Ward was absolutely shitting himself up online, because I think the full story is genuinely amusing. Where Bruce didn't do anything.
I'd heard that years ago.
He doesn't need to do anything, does he?
No.
If you just hear Bruce Lee is annoyed with you, Jesus Christ.
Another series I only recently just got. I haven't read it yet. I got some of the Logan's Run books that came out.
Right.
Wow.
That's a good one as well. But I think we're a fair.
The initial book, because my friends read it and he said it's so much kind of like punchier than the film was.
Okay. This is I've only got. I think it's one of the sequels.
Yeah.
This one.
Okay.
But we're a way off hitting that, aren't we? From that's early 70s, I think I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
I think that's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously this has been a fascinating sort of dive. I mean, for you guys, I mean, you're like pros now, aren't you? You know, you've got your eyes on new targets, as well as just still making all these current comics. You've always got comics on the go, which is why we love you guys. And you've got so many different sort of the Kickstarters, obviously successfully funded, which is amazing. So, you know, pledge on it now, people, because a book's coming. A book will
you
exist.
got about 48 hours to go, and quite possibly a print.
Yeah. You know, what does the rest of this fine year of 2025 have in store for you?
So, I mean, the big thing is we're working on the Green Archer large book.
Yeah.
That is the most expensive thing that we've ever done ahead of time, because we're paying for basically 3 full comics, and then hope that the Kickstarter funds for that. And it's not like Buck Rogers where, it's not like Buck Rogers where there's a built-in fan base of Buck Rogers. The Green Archer, as popular as it was and as popular as the movies were, that we're trying to rebuild the fan base for that thing. So, you know,
Right.
Tony's point about things kind of falling out of fashion, that fell out of fashion a long time ago. But that's basically taking up the rest of the year. We are doing the 4th issue of the Press Guardian and the 2nd issue of the Clock, but those won't be out until January. So, so the big things for this year is Buck Rogers, and then finishing up the Green Archer novel. And then once the fall hits, we've got a bunch of cons to go to. Starting in August, we'll be at Pulp Fest in Pittsburgh, and then Fairfax Comic Con, which is, for me at least, the local Comic Con, which will be nice. And then Baltimore with Tony. Not with Tony, but Tony will be there.
You will be with me. I'll tell you now. You won't get rid of me.
We're going to put Tony behind the table and let him sign whatever he wants.
Wouldn't be the first
That
time.
is the most dangerous thing you've ever said.
I did once get mistaken for a Marvel artist and signed for him once. That is a true story. I'll tell you when I see you.
Amazing. Amazing. So, in terms of like Kickstarters, you're fully committed. You must have it down because you've done quite a few now. You've done a few. So, have you actually sort of got the process of getting the comic, packing it up? You know, I find that, you know, we've had a lot of our listeners, and obviously Tony and Dan as well. After a couple of like campaigns, you're smoothing off the edges, don't you, with every campaign? Have you got this one pretty much locked, loaded, ready to go as soon as it finishes?
Yeah, so this is our 10th Kickstarter.
Wow.
And one of the things that we've learned, though, is people do get Kickstarter fatigue. We're a small press. We don't have 10,000 people or 100,000 people on our mailing list to keep hitting up for Kickstarter. So we reduced the number of Kickstarters we did this year, we are going to reduce to 4. We did 5 last year, and we did 2 in 2023. So we're or 3 in 2023. So we're reducing the number of Kickstarters to 4 this year. This is our 10th, and the process is pretty smooth. People run into problems all the time. You're dealing with artists, and since we aren't the artist, you do things all. But now we know to start earlier. That's why, like, I get nervous about the Green Archer when we do that one, because that is that one is we're outlaying a whole lot of cash up front, and hope that
it's the biggest project so far that you've taken on.
Right, exactly. But as far as the process goes, so the art for all of this is done. Our letterers already started on the lettering. Once the Kickstarter ends, we'll probably need another week or so to go through the lettering. And then once everything clears, we'll send the digital format out. The digital comic will be released. We'll send it to the printer. About 2 weeks later, we'll get them back, and then we'll start shipping them out. Except for people in the UK, because I'm going to the UK at the beginning of August, which is why we can do like cheap shipping for people in the UK. I'm just going to bring a stack of the comics with me and go to the Royal Mail office. And drop them in there. I did that. I did that for Dan the last time I was in the UK. There was a comic he wanted, and I just bought it with me. And then rather than paying $20 to ship it, I spent $3 and got to go to and Tesco, I think it was. It was a inside of Tesco.
Man of the people.
Shout out to Tesco.
Oi, if you're in London, you better not blank me again this time, because last time I invited you to the Scarfs bar and you blanked me. So
I know.
So we'll be doing that. I'll get mine off you in person, I think, mate.
I'll be in London a little bit longer, and then I have to go out to Bournemouth for the weekend for a security conference. So I'll be in London earlier in the week. That is right after Pulp Fest. So, Tony, if you see anything from Pulp Fest you want, let me know, because I can bring it with me.
Don't tempt me, my friend. Don't tempt me.
Oh,
bring an extra suitcase.
There's another suitcase.
Bring Ben in your suitcase. That's what I want. I want him. I want to see him.
Those baggage fees are going to be ridiculous. So,
not with my status. I get 2 free check bags plus my carry-on. So
right. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing in Baltimore, my friend. That's what I'm doing. Yeah.
I know Tony just took that as a challenge. How many bags can I make him have to check over the two he's allowed?
Listen, when I was in Baltimore last time, there was a mad lady who asked me if I had a cigarette. If you find her, stick her in a suitcase, bring her over.
Oh God! So before this goes completely, well, actually, it has already gone completely.
Yeah,
off the
too
rails.
late.
But obviously, where can people find the Kickstarter for the next couple of days? But just in the future, what can they sign up to, like newsletters and everything else, to find out more about you guys?
So if you go to greenarcher.io, that is our website. And if you sign up for our mailing list, you do get a free digital comic book, a free Johnny Dollar like origin story. We've had this in place for like a year, and then it never occurred to me that I should advertise that to people. And my son was finally like, who's like the best marketer out of all of us, is like, hey, why aren't you like advertising that on your website? And I'm like, oh yeah. And then suddenly people started signing up to our mailing list like crazy. We are, thanks to Rhonda, we are active on Instagram and Facebook at Green Archer Comics. We have a Blue Sky account at greenarcher.io, and our YouTube account, which doesn't really promote our stuff. It's just where I talk about.
That's a great little channel, man. I have a little look at that during lunchtime at work. Yeah.
Your check cleared. So yes, that's a great channel.
Yeah, thank you. The Tony Osmond These Are Movie Star episode, particularly good.
Which I have number 2 that's going to go out this week. So
okay, good.
And Dan, I'm working on a longer video to cover the whole expanse of Vanguard.
Awesome.
That's a dissertation. That is.
Yeah. That's going to be like a 5-hour video, basically. to have like all the Diet Dr. Pepper and just keep drinking. And
Nice.
And I might have to do like the Senate with the filibuster. I might have to call in Ben to ask me a bunch of questions so I can have a seat.
Well,
stuff, man.
We cannot wait to see. I mean, I'd be very interested to see if you can, but if there could be more Buck Rogers from you guys in the future, that would be very interesting as well.
Yeah.
So
And that robot with the penis for a head. He's
Yeah,
a favourite of ours.
no, 100%. We will figure out a way to incorporate that. What I really want to do is sit down with Ben and Chris, and for the next story, I want to do something that you all were complaining about that I think I want to figure out what because the thing about the original Buck Rogers story is there were new sci-fi things that people had never thought of before that were introduced in that story. But now, like you all have said, so much sci-fi is like, it's the same tropes over and over again.
Yeah.
I want to think of new and interesting things that people haven't thought about. And I may not be smart enough, but I think between Ben, Chris, and myself, we can come up with some new things that people hadn't considered for a future and present those in there. Because the nice thing about Buck Rogers is we can send him off to another planet with some cool new tech that nobody had ever thought of before.
Yeah, also surrounded by that Buck Rogers aesthetic as well, because it's already an established aesthetic that you can introduce new things into making it fresh. Yeah, that'd be lovely, man. Yeah, really good.
Well, we can't wait to see more of. I can't believe I'm
Go
saying
back
this
the
on this
campaign
show. More
for a couple of
Buck
days.
Rogers.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And welcome back.
Yeah,
So much knowledge. I've learned.
Yeah, me too. That's
as
good.
al-
I'm excited for
as
this.
always, yeah.
Can't
Yeah.
wait to see it.
Yeah. There is, I mean, as they mentioned on the interview, like just an absolute murderer's row of brilliant creators. That, you know, they get good creators, and they're good to work with, aren't they, Dan? So you know,
I've got to say, they're absolutely such a pleasure to work with. They're great. A couple of times to come back, we're sort of like, what if we try this? And they're so open to ideas, and
That's
it's
good, man.
great. So much fun.
Proper collaboration.
Yeah, so be sure to check out the Kickstarter if you listen to this as the episode goes live. But anyway, you should check out all their back issues and stuff anyway, because the Green Archer stuff is great stuff, and there's good to know there's even more to come. And yeah, get notifications for when that big book is coming, because obviously
If you got the Global Comics, I think they've got 1 or 2 titles in there as well, so you can check out on there too.
Yeah. Cool. So onwards with the show, and do we have any shout outs this week, Jen?
Yeah, a few. So, a couple of old favourites. Galaxy Grappling Alliance 3 Galactic Rumble is now out to back on Kickstarter. It's sci-fi wrestling and some absolutely breathtakingly incredible art from the Art92 people, Damien and Helena. That's now through to its stretch goals. So good luck to them. Let's see what, get on board it. One of the best crews in small press, I'm going to say. One of my favourite artists in small press is Rory Donald, and he's got Space Boy and the Future King 2, Awakening of the Spitty Pig. Did Arthur and Space Boy survive? What exactly is a Spitty Pig? Don't get left out in this one as well. This you really need to get to that. Thanks to Will, who wrote in about comic Steak, issue 3, Rare. It's currently on Kickstarter. It's written by Will and art by Mark Olivant. Shades of, do you remember 2000 AD's Flesh, where they go back in time to hunt dinosaurs to use them as food? So Benjamin Buckland uses time travel to serve dinosaur meat in his restaurants.
Yes, I read the first issue. This is great.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is really good. Yeah.
Well, go to the emails. They're on there. The new one's on there.
Brilliant.
But complications come obviously when people involving themselves, people start dying and people start going missing. So it's developing very much. So finally, I did another Never Mind Anything podcast this week. Myself and Jonny Cannon took a deep dive into the effects that our comics influences have on us. So are they an assistance or are they a pair of handcuffs for you sometimes? Jonny always comes with the brilliant insight, and thanks to everyone on the Slack who's been sort of chatting about it and commenting about it. A lot of stuff going on around it, a lot of people thinking about it. Dipladocus and Sea Lion from Andy Goodridge is now available to buy, a comic that Andy made for his kid. Now, I think this is the purest kind of way to make a comic for me.
Yeah,
he made a comic for his kid. A friend of his said, why don't you ask Tony what he thinks of it? He sent it to me and I said, I like this. This is all right. There's a nice fresh take on it, and he's stuck it out to sell as well. So if you go to Diplodocus, so DIPLODICUS and sealion.com, you can get 14 fun adventures. It's A5, 68 pages, only $4.99, which is a good price, I think. There you go, they're my ones.
Nice. Dan, what have you got?
I've got Open Caskets 1, Wolff and Batsy, full colour art book. It's got 14 days to go. The first book in a series of supplemental volumes complementing Wolff and Batsy comics.
Wolff and Batsy's been going since 1999. Did you know that?
Mad, isn't it? We like it as well. We've all reviewed it, I think, haven't we, at some point?
We'll see if we can get Brian on the show in the future to talk about it, because I think it's great stuff.
Rasp, Book 1. A soulless detective conducts a seemingly simple investigation that turns into an incredible experience which will change him forever, by Martin Simpson. That looks absolutely fantastic. I think we've been saying how great that looks past couple of shows. All Martin's book work is jaw-dropping. It's amazing. We've got Spearpoint, a World War II fantasy adventure comic book. A young witch and her friends are all that stand in the way of an invasion from an ancient underground race of creatures. That smashed its target. That's from Scratch Comics, Shane Chebsney and friends. Do go take a look at that. That looks really good. Spin down the interiors. Yeah, lovely stuff. We've got Night Vision, issues 1 to 4. Night Vision beats the streets in these 4 black and white comics created and drawn by Uru Tunes, full of action, bad guys, and boobies. That Boobies delivers on that Kickstarter, and in Boo's work, I can vouch. I think we can all vouch for that. So we've got a load of Kickstarters there. Go check them out. And it's awesome.
Nice. I just want to give a little shout out. Thank you to everyone that wished me happy birthday this past week. You know, I'm not going to reply to everyone on Instagram or on the Slack or anything like that. So
fuck them, right? Yeah, fuck them.
Yeah, just absolutely fuck everyone. It's all about me. No, but in all seriousness, because, you know, if I was to do that, that would be like 3 days, because I was very touched and it was lovely. Thank you to all the messages and everything.
Thanks everyone wishing me a happy birthday. Wasn't even my birthday.
That did make me laugh. That did make me laugh, Dan, when I saw that. But yeah,
you also allowed Dan to get his cheeky birthday in as well. And I know, by the way, you can support me on my birthday through this PayPal address.
Yeah. Only Dan's.
I'll leave the GoFundMe link up.
Yeah. Everyone else runs.
Go what you?
Fund.
Oh right, Rogers, okay. I've been going to the wrong website. Copyright. Oh, anyway, we have a little bunch of comics to recommend to you, lovely people. Plenty of titles to add to your wish lists from all over the world, and lots of different comics and magazines, etc. So let's kick off. Tony, do you want to kick off? Is it the one I'm thinking of?
Well, I'm going to say, do you want me to go with that one first? Shall I go with the smart first? Okay, so you know how much I like fucked up shit in my comics. I think it's fairly listeners will know that by now. This may be the most crazily transgressive shit I've read in a long time. Unsurprisingly, also a manga. God bless the Japanese. God bless them. This is called Beautiful Monster, a collection of stories by Maruo Suehiro. It's published by Bubbles, who do the fanzine, the magazine, and it's translated by Take a Drink Ryan Holmberg, who I know we've mentioned quite a few times. I got this through Third Bet. Maruo is a regular contributor to the underground manga anthology Garo, Garo, which is quite well known. We've mentioned it a couple of times on here. His work is easily and often described as nightmarish, and he's one of those sort of cool manga guys who's rarely seen without his sunglasses. That kind of gives you an impression of what he's like, yeah. He's fascinated with Showa era Japan, but especially to me, it's the pre-war, post-war period. The dark times produce dark people, I think, and the dark times after the nuclear bombs and everything in Japan have produced the darkest of manga. I know when Tom was on a few weeks ago, he talked about one, didn't he? It was just like chillingly difficult. Yeah. And there's a lot out there around that. Add to it this almost like German postmodern aesthetic, black and white movie, horror movie aesthetic, which sort of mixes in with the Japanese manga feel of it, and you've got just something that is just genuinely disturbing. I'm not going to describe it all because it's a collection of stories, but I'll do a couple. So the first story is the only one to use any kind of color, and it uses a sort of fluorescent pink, a sort of 2-color system, and it plays on the visual prompts that you get from what we talked about a second ago, 1920s German horror movies, and it's called The Return of Dr. Caligari. And what was it called? Was it the
Cabinet of
the Cabinet? Yeah, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. It's quite a well-known horror film, isn't it, from that period? This one turns it up again, and there's genuinely nightmarish stuff in it. There's a midnight tightrope walk against a pink, vibrant sky at night, almost a silhouette. There's a kidnapping, breast cutting, and is it or isn't it a nightmare ending? Is this real? Is it not real? Kind of thing going on with it, which is done very cleverly. There's a book called the story called Natural Beauty, which I think is my favourite actually in the book, and it's about the nearest you'll get to any kind of joy in one of his comics because they're just full of destruction and death. There's this character, he's got like Hirohito style glasses, little round glasses, yes. But he's got like a walrus moustache, and he's telling everyone, he's sort of expounding the benefits of laughter, and he's saying everyone's got to laugh. It's the key to life, and he tells them to all start laughing, and the room fills with laughter. But what they've done is the translations in this haven't replaced the Japanese words in the laughter. They've just added little bits of ha 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 in it. So nice. The way that they text, turn it into text that laughter, like we would do ha 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 ha, it's different, and it's sort of streaming out, and it's because of that it becomes part of the artwork to me. I showed you it just before we started. One man is congratulated for laughing out of his ears. Okay, so that's good. Another person is congratulated for laughing out of his nose, and yes, you've guessed it, another lady is congratulated for laughing out of her vagina. At which point,
well done.
Congratulations to you. Well done, you. And he tells everyone, he starts getting undressed. He's a big geezer. He starts getting undressed, and he tells everyone else, laugh from the depths of your body, and then it becomes an orgy, and the story ends. So it kind of gives you, that's kind of a taster of what these are like. They're not long stories. They're just little short things. Impotent Lovers is a woman's lover dies, and in an effort to experience what he experienced, she digs his eyeball out and sticks it in her vagina and uses it to see, and has experienced this sort of, I suppose, a trip. Not for the faint of heart. Don't go to this one if you're not used to underground manga. Don't go to this one if you're not used to manga of that period or descriptions of that period. Definitely, I read this in I'm like, well, I say often, and I go to a coffee shop on a Sunday morning to read through the books I'm going to talk about on a Sunday night. I pulled it out in Cafe Nero this morning, the book, incidentally, everyone, and I went, fucking hell, no, I'm putting that back in. Yeah. I'm putting that away again. Like, no way is anyone looking over my shoulder.
Cafe Nero.
Yeah, give me. Yeah. It also has the effect. I don't know if you got this from when I showed you it earlier, but it's both nasty. It's obviously underground manga, but it's got that sort of retro cinematic black and white movie poster feel to it in such a strange way. that it just offsets you again. It makes it just disturbing again. Yeah, brilliant. Actually, it is brilliant. Whether I can recommend it or not, I don't know. I don't know if I can say I can recommend it, but it was certainly an experience. It's certainly pushing the form somewhere.
Well, it's a recommendation. Saying that there's a lot of people that will get something out of this.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can recommend it to everyone. Perhaps is what I'm saying there.
Yeah.
I think if you are into that sort of manga stuff, comics free.
Understandable. I mean, I remember reading years ago, like there was a book on manga, and it contained a story like that, and I was like,
yeah,
fucking hell, it's.
Something else. I mean, it's like, for instance, a lot of talk was about Red Room, but you're not going to recommend that to everyone. But there's people who would totally read that.
There's a lot in Red Room as well. Like this again, the actual craft is brilliant in Red Room. The drawing in it there's so much effort and so much skill into it, and the same as this one. And he's going for this aesthetic, which is just brilliantly done. If you go to thirdbearpress.com, you can buy this and many other books. So it's a bookmarked website for me that I go to often, and it comes really quickly. Stephen Ingram's who runs it will always seems to manage to send it out almost the same day if you've done order something. But yeah, good stuff. That's my first one, guys. There you go.
Nice. Dan, you got a couple of
it's going to kind of quicker ones because not full. Well, all recommends. First one is actually kind of goes into the shower section. It's Lords on the Piss. Issue 2. That's actually coming up for Kickstarter soon, but the first one you can read on Global Comics, and this has got one of those things. It's great on Global Comics that it shows you a certain amount of pages from the next one and points you at the campaign. So if you've got a comic on Global Comics and you've got another issue coming out on Kickstarter, you can link it and you can kind of take it to it. If you kind of like Lord of the Rings, D&D kind of stuff, it's kind of like lads on the piss on a night out, set in that kind of world with ladder humor. It's really funny. I also took time to the Once in the Future. There's a special edition of the book that's just the art. It's like a commentary edition, black and white art.
So Once in Future, who published that? Was that
Boom. Is it Image? Boom, is it? Okay. Boom. It's Kieran Gillen, isn't it? Is that right?
Yeah.
Kieran Gillen and Dan Mora.
Right.
It's all black and white art. It's not coloured, no lettering, and there's a kind of commentary track, if you want to call it that, underneath the pages.
What do they call it? Like a director's edition, or what? Or is it a commentary edition?
Pen and ink.
Because I see a lot of different names for these sort of things, aren't they? Yeah. Like director's commentary or things like that.
It's quite common in albums. Bande dessinée, I noticed when last time I was at Angoulême. It's something that's definitely happening over there a lot.
I mean, being cynical, you could say it's a way of getting a few extra quid out of work that's already been made.
Yeah.
But genuinely looking at the work in black and white before like it has any colouring put on it, and you can just see the beauty of the ink and the lines.
Yeah, I think, initially these sort of books, like you say, Dan, it's like it's making more money out of the people who are fans of this book. But I also think things like this, even if you haven't bought the book, if you're interested in the process of comic, or like you don't necessarily have to have read the series, do you? If it's a really well made one, it's like check this out because it's a really good sort of the workings of it.
Me saying this, I think it's come off the back of Mora being like kind of the first or second best artist at DC for a long time now. So this predates his work on World's Finest and Superman and all that sort of thing.
So you think they're trying to get their audience?
Yeah, predates his work with. Did he work with Miller? Didn't he as well? And I think they've gone, oh right, well this might be interesting. People will want to see it. He's a known artist. Let's put out some of his work, and I hope, as long as he's getting money out of it, mate, I don't care. He's good, he's a great artist.
Yeah. It's taking the back matter that we have in some collected editions that I always like seeing, like character sketches and script pages, taking it to the next level, isn't it? Really.
Wild Goose, you better be doing this, by the way. Just up on that, to you.
Oh man, yeah, that'd be snapped up. That's fucking lovely stuff. I was gifted from Kieran Squires the black and white art book version of Do a Powerbomb. And that's absolutely lovely to see that just with the pen and inks. Yeah. The other two comics got. I stopped myself from reading it until the guys finished it, and that's Aaron Rackley and Kieran Squires again. I think that's the third mention for Kieran now. That's for Serial Hunter, which you can. There's a Kickstarter campaign coming up for the printed edition of Book 1. That's yet to get going, but that's on the launchpad as we speak. And 2 is kind of in the works. Serial Hunter very much reminds me of like an Amazon TV show where there's kind of like a strong concept or premise, and then it kind of just supernatural style kind of goes off and starts exploring it. It feels like a kind of a baddie of the week kind of issue. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
The main character has to go up against a force in each issue. It's very readable. I had a good time reading it. It's fun. Do you like Kieran's artwork? It kind of just goes from strength to strength. Kieran's really starting to find his voice.
Yeah.
His style and his work.
He's hard working as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he's fucking non-stop, man. He's
a nice bloke. I know he listens.
Yeah.
Lovely guy. And finally, one of my favorites at the moment is G.I. Joe.
Ring that bell. G.I. Joe's the new Punisher, because
Yeah.
it is a really good comics.
Until the Punisher comes back by Jerry Duggan, which I cannot wait for.
I'm gonna fucking be all over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't wait. In this sort of, I can't talk too much about previous issues because I don't want to spoil it for you guys.
Yeah.
But the Baroness characters, she's kind of coming to blows a bit with the rest of the squad, and she's been told to sort of take a bit of a sabbatical.
I've read the first couple of issues of like this main series, and it's really impressive how.
I got the trade the other day, just off the back of I haven't ever read any G.I. Joe really, so yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
And this is
It's a good
you got
entry,
the trade of the new series.
Yeah.
It's just really good what they're doing with this. Really surprising,
It's good
and
seeing
the
all
art's
characters
amazing.
I used to know and love,
Yeah.
and like when you see him popping up.
Because I didn't. I mean, I got to be honest. I'm a Joe head, but I never really cared for Duke. I know Duke's like one of the main, absolute main
like
ones.
a much better character in this.
Yeah,
He's not
he
just
is. Yeah,
like a
Flint's my
blank-
boy. Flint was always my boy. But Duke is he's a fascinating character in this. He's really good.
Yeah, he's really good. Yeah,
Yeah.
He's kind of. I think they explain it in his own miniseries where he gets a view of like one of the Transformers in action, and he's banging this drum saying, "Look, I fucking saw this," and everyone discounts what he's seen, and it goes from there. I'm not I really like G.I. Joe and I really like Transformers, but I like them to be on their own. And this series kind of brings them together a bit, which I'm not mad on.
Yeah.
But it's a small little thing. I can fucking look past it.
Yeah.
They're selling gangbusters, aren't they? So it's a good thing for comics, I guess.
Yeah.
No, it's just doing the simple formula of just telling good stories.
Yeah.
With nice art. It's very uncomplicated and just
good stories,
That's what it
nice
fucking
art,
says.
taking it seriously, just trying to tell an action adventure story. And what's that? It's popular. Who would have
Yeah, I know.
thought it?
Cancel it.
this comic has a scene with two female characters having a drink outside of a cafe, which seems to be like the
As every
modus
issue,
operandi for every issue.
Every
But
marvelous,
this is
yeah.
fucking decent. It's
Yeah.
really good.
Right, good.
Two people actually having a conversation rather than
Yeah,
whatever
it
we
doesn't
get
last
out
for
of
fucking 5 pages. It's like a page, and then it will.
yeah. That's all you need, isn't it? You know.
Yeah, and they're talking about plot,
Yeah.
not just how they're feeling.
All
Anyway,
these
enough of me
feelings and
fucking
shit.
being.
Yeah. So G.I. Joe. Yeah, I need to catch up with this. I need to get that trade actually. I think Tony, I've got to be next on that.
Let's all get it. Let's all get it and read it together.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
Yeah.
Because you've got three. You've got you two old Joe heads and me as a newbie. You might make an interesting one, won't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see how we feel. Yeah.
Yeah. In some ways, it's I think it's similar to like when Tony, you're talking about. There's a lot of characters that I don't have a connection with because they're a generation before, or like whether it be books or movies or whatever that I don't have a connection with. And of course, me and Dan are the generation that had the action figures and all of that, which was
you two
after.
with like G.I. Joe, Transformers, or Action Force,
things like Thundercats, all of
definitely.
that. Yeah.
He-Man don't connect with me, but
No.
I'm willing to give them a go.
Yeah, exactly. Well, good comics are good comics, aren't they?
Yeah,
At the
exactly.
end of the day. Yeah. I'll jump in before Tony finishes us off.
Hey.
I found another series on Global Comics this week. I'm filtering. I'm for gold. I'm like I'm a prospector.
Yeah, panhandling.
Yeah, I've got those overalls.
It's
Just
becoming
about-
harder to search on there.
Yeah.
I keep coming up against things that I have to pay extra for. I just paid £99 for a year.
Yeah.
I don't really want to have to fucking pay.
Or just a lot of people that God bless them, making their first comics and stuff, but it's not what I want to see. Or there's a lot of work, I'm trying to find some stuff, so that when one comes along, They're just much like Lizzie Parsec. I've discovered. I think recently, Wolff and Batsy was another one. Tony got me on.
That's a good one. Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? Yeah.
Lizzie Parsec was the sci-fi. So we had the sort of the EC horror one that hit that vein. Lizzie Parsec was the sci-fi vein, in the true sort of indie small press kind of way. And I discovered Side Questers on Global Comics. This is from Dire Wolf
This
Comics.
has got to be bang up your street. As soon as I saw a cover, I thought, you were all over this, hadn't you?
Yeah.
It's got to be for you,
This
innit?
was,
Yeah.
and there's like, how many issues? There are 9 issues available.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah. So this is, Dan Wolff is the creator of this, but it's Dire Wolf Comics. So if you go to DIREWOLFF, so there's 2 F's because it's his second name, .com. And you can see Dan's work. He's a great illustrator, but Side Questers is his comic. And he does have a collection of it, but I'm currently on issue, before I knew it, I've just about started issue 6. And here's the plot for the first trade. Cindy is an honourable soldier with the drive to serve the people and her gods. Yaron is a 9-foot lizard man with a big hammer and a terrifying reputation. They are about to be best friends. Side Questers is a fantasy adventure series about friendship, altruism, and smashing monsters. And it totally is that. I mean, normally we especially with fantasy series, more and more you sort of say, oh, if you like D&D or it's got those sort of dynamics and stuff. Yes, if you're into the fantasy genre, you'll recognise that there's tropes in this. But for me, this almost felt, and I think the clue's in the name, Side Questers. That sort of the video game, the Skyrim, all of those, the Elder Scrolls, all these big, where you have these big open worlds and there's lots of things going on with these small communities. They've got to do one mission. Oh, but they're always being distracted. Oh, I've got to do that. I've got to figure out that. And it's done in a really Dan's work's really good. Like, he's doing some really interesting things with some of the pages as well. So it's not just telling a simple sort of fantasy story. I like to see artists doing a bit more with the page, if that makes sense. Like there's one bit, and the crux of it, there's this small group of villains who are going to these different tombs and they're trying to find things. And the story's building up to when the two heroes, and it's a buddy comedy. Well, not buddy comedy, it's a buddy adventure. They haven't met the villains yet, but you can tell we're heading in that direction. And Cindy is almost like it's almost a paladin, like she's a knight that, she has these gods, and there is bits of lore in the book, which is beautifully told. And she believes in, right, the God I follow, I have to protect people, I have to do the right thing. So she follows like a steward who basically says, right, I want you to go there, this has to be done, but first you're going to meet this warrior, this barbarian, and you've got to take him with you. And she meets Yaron, who is this giant lizard man, right? And obviously in this world, dragons and things like that, people look at this lizard man, and like racism, they're just like, as soon as they see him, like, you're disgusting, you need to kill this thing that you're walking around with. But he is like an absolute badass, and he's just smashing people. And there is, if you like, a bit of violence as well. He's got this big hammer and he is smashing heads, and you just see the heads going. But he's also like, I don't know what everyone's problem is with me. Where I come from, no one ever fights and everything. When I'm here, I'm only acting like you people. So there's interesting stories and messages, but without heavy-handed use of it. That's what I like about it. The story itself is you can follow it really easy, that these two, because she's unsure of him, but the longer that they spend together, the more that they're teaching each other about things. And her thing is, because she's like a paladin-like character, she's been given a mission to do something, and on her way there, if she meets someone that needs help, she almost she has to say yes. If someone's being robbed, she's like, I have to help them. So there's all those side quests that she's supposed to be doing the main thing, but she's always going, and she's taking him with him.
Doing bits and bobs.
Yeah, doing bits and bobs. But it works naturally. Even though I said, like, people who know video games or these sort of things, you'll see that in there. but it's made so well that it feels natural to the comic. It is a comic first and foremost, and a story first and foremost. But artwork, he does some interesting things, like they're going through a tomb and destroying all these zombies and these that are in this crypt. And there's one page where they're going through the different levels of this tomb, and they're travelling down. And it's much like we talk about the classic, the Daredevil page, where the characters are walking through that scene. And it's almost like you have a cutaway, almost like a Wes Anderson cutaway of this thing. And they're walking down and they're having a conversation, which works really well as they're fighting. So you're following, so there's bits like that.
Love pages like that.
Yeah.
So different.
I started it from issue 1. There was a couple of things maybe I noticed, because I always like seeing these things, especially when I've got these many issues, to see the development of a creator and as they get more confident. It's very consistent in terms of the artwork. Dan's got a style. It's brilliant. I think it works really well. It's a bit different. It feels it gave me the energy of back in the day when we started the show, the sort of small press and independent. I can see someone just selling these comics, at a small press show. It's got that energy to it. There were a couple of things on some of the speech bubbles, and I can see this. I don't know where he's got the fonts. I've noticed this. He's picked it's not a generic comic-like font. It's something a little bit more hand-drawn-y. But I think what he's done, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, is like, you have the regular... I'm about to talk about fonts, people, so buckle up for 30 seconds. You have the regular weight, and you have the bold weight. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that. But I find with some of these fonts that you use, especially when it comes to handwritten and comic fonts, and I've had to do this several times, the bold weight sometimes looks a little bit smaller than the regular. Have you ever noticed this, Dan, when you bolded something? Yeah. So just say you've got a speech bubble in 8 point. Everything's 8 point. And if you make a couple of those words 8 point bold, it'll look just a tiny little bit smaller than the rest of it.
Yeah.
So what I've done, in many comics, is if I'm bolding stuff, I'll take it up a point size, just so it almost looks
sticks
out.
Yeah.
It's a problem with the font, and
it's not been made correctly.
Yeah. So and I noticed that a couple of times, but that's just me being the process guy and seeing that and
it's kind of thing you train yourself to see.
Yeah,
it's part of your work as well. So
these sort of things they won't detract anyone from. It didn't take me out of the comic because the comic is absolutely lovely. I did notice, he's made a lot of issues, and on his website there's a little link for the side quest as Kickstarter. He's obviously done a few Kickstarters. The last one for issues 9 and 10 it wasn't funded. And I thought to myself, he's issue 9's on Global Comics, so he's making these comics because he loves them. And I just thought, this is actually a good book. Do you know what I mean? It's getting better.
Make sure we pimp the next one.
Yeah,
that's what we got to do.
Yeah. So Side Questers on his website as well. He's also got a series of like anthology. These are more black and white tales called Haxon, which I think are exploring more about like the arcane bits of the world as well. So we can tell these short stories that are a little bit more poignant, a bit darker, about dark wizards and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, go to direwolf.com. That's two Fs. And look for Side Questers. Just look for the Side Questers comics. I'd also, just from a design perspective, I really love the covers he does for these, because they are different from the interiors, but they've got a real graphic design look to it. I sent the covers to the guys, and I was like, and he's consistent with it.
I can see they're up your street, geezer. Yeah, immediately.
Yeah. So this was another one checked off there. Okay, there's my fantasy indie title for the year. Check.
Boom, done.
Yeah, so that's mine. Tony.
Okay, so my last one is my semi-regular chance to promote
something
the
very
magazines.
very close to you, isn't it?
Yeah. So Tomorrow's is a company. I think I buy 3 or 4 of their books, their magazines as they come out. They're telling the history of comics essentially. So I thought I'd give a rundown. I have 3 different ones in case you want to get on board them. And there's a couple of ways you can get on board them. Now the problem with Tomorrow's, it's not a problem with them, it's a problem with Diamond. When Diamond went into chapter 11? I can't remember whichever chapter it is in America. It means they didn't have to pay their debtors. So Tomorrow's were owed an awful lot of money by Diamond that they're not going to get. So I think it's important that we support these companies who are telling us about the history of comics, and we only learn about how to make comics through the people who've made them previously, don't we? Really, at the end of the day. Yeah. So I thought I'd mention some of them. Probably the first one is Jack Kirby Collector, the one that I always go to straight away. This is the new one is issue 93, if you can believe it. Jack Kirby Collector has gone through various incarnations. In fact, the early ones are worth a few quid. They're almost a bit more sort of pamphletty. For a period of time, they went oversized, so they went 11 by 17 almost, which gave you Kirby art in its. He often didn't draw that size, but it gives you big examples of Kirby art. And Kirby Collector specialises in showing you the original pencils of Kirby, which is nice. I'm just showing the boys there's something from Captain America when he came back to it. And for that, it's just brilliant. Seemingly, they keep discovering these interviews with Kirby that I've never read before. There's one from I think it's a radio station. They get Kirby on, and Kirby's a very heartfelt guy. And they say to him, "What superpower would you have?" I think I'll put this on the Slack. What superpower would you have? And he says, I'd have the superpower of love. And I'm like, I love this dude. I fucking love Kirby. He's such a good guy, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? Other things in this issue are there's a special on supporting actors. There's something called Kirby Obscura, something on Ant-Man. There's a representation. They repost a Simon and Kirby story from 1949 called Dead or Alive from Headline Comics, issue 35, which, as far as I know, has rarely been seen elsewhere. It's just a wonderful homage, and Kirby's the king. We all know that. He's the dude. This is all about him. I know you boys kind of felt the love when we did it. God, it's got to be 5 or 6 years ago, didn't it? You went, no, this is really good. And it goes back to what you were talking about a minute ago, guys, about this is what you loved, and it's G.I. Joe and Transformers and that sort of thing. But this is what I loved. This is Kirby hit me immediately. Kirby's Fantastic Four, stuff like that. Just beautiful stuff, beautiful. So go and get that. Loads of rarities. If you're into craft, there's a load of stuff from how Kirby drew, what he drew, who inked him, how they inked differently on him, and all this sort of thing. The next one is Alter Ego, issue 193, if you can believe it. This sort of takes more of a Golden Age, Silver Age feel to it, and it's kind of I'm going to say it's sort of It's called Roy Thomas's Steely Comics fanzine, Alter Ego, and it comes from something he started. And Roy's been in comics for 60 years.
Wow.
Fucking incredible, isn't it? Yeah. It's called, wasn't either The Boy or something like that. This is a really interesting one. So it's mainly salutes the men, but by a journalist called Eddie Zeno. Salutes the men who drew Superman after Joe Shuster. And you get Wayne Boring, Fred Gardner, Leo Nowak, all these people who should be getting credit because they kept it alive. They kept Superman alive. There's a lovely chronological history all about it in here, which is just beautiful. And it's full of just Golden Age, Silver Age art, and pages and covers and stuff like that. There's homages to those couple of people we recently lost. I'm massive fans of both these two people. They're, if we can categorize comics heroes of mine, Keith Giffen, who I managed to meet once and was just a delight to meet, and Don Perlin, who I'm a massive fan of. His stuff like his Defenders and Marvel Teen Up stuff and stuff is a real thing in my childhood. You also get a magazine within a magazine, which is called the FCA, which is Fawcett Collectors of America, which is kind of about the Shazam-y type family, Captain Marvel kind of family. Loads of Golden Age stuff. And then the final one, which is it brings it a bit more nearer, is Back Issue magazine. So this is on issue 159, and this is the Back Issue presents Crisis on Infinite Earth. How many years is it since Crisis on Infinite Earth? Any guesses?
Fucking hell.
45.
40. It's 40.
Wow.
Yeah, well done. So it's like a Perez-y cover to that, and it goes in on that. And there's loads of stuff. There's loads of concept art. There's loads of art. They reproduced the kill list. So I don't know if you know about this, but before Crisis came out, there was what's called a kill list circulating about who they should kill during Crisis. And people were like ticking off names and who should it be, and there was all these meetings about it. And of course, we know we lost a couple during it, didn't we? Famously. There's a Prince Street News, which is kind of a bit of a a gag Forbushman kind of gag strip in there. There's a lovely chat between Bob Greenberger, who's one of the editors, and Marv Wolfman, and they talk about the direct market, because this is all also around the time that the direct market really took off, didn't it? And around that time we had stuff like Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen and Amiga Men and all this sort of, the New Teen Titans had their own direct market, Legion Superheroes had their own direct market and stuff like that. I'll be honest with you, the magazines can be a little expensive, so it's $10.95 for back issue magazine, which is a little much. But if you don't fancy doing that, there is a digital version. You can go and buy them digitally, and I think there's a sort of subscription model you can work out. If you go to twomorrows.com on their website, or Tomorrows Pubs, PUBS, on Instagram, you can see loads of their stuff. It's one of the stalls that I always stop by. If you're ever at an American convention, a big one, they have a stall at it, and they always have 3 for the price of 2. And I buy something like the Herb Trimp book and Sterenko and all these sort of people. Paul Levitz has put a book out, and Joe Sin out a book on him, and they do like artist-specific books. I've got a J.R. J.Y. and all these sort of ones. Yeah, really good. So go and support Tomorrows, because they're doing the Lord's work. There you go.
Hell yeah.
And as are you lovely people listening to this episode, because obviously you want to know about comics, and you want to know about making comics and reading independent comics, and you're interested in stuff away from the main two, or maybe you just like a laugh. Whatever it was, we hope you enjoyed this episode. It was very fun. It's always fun talking about comics. Always. Yeah. And if there's anything you want us to talk about in future episodes,
in the words of Pete Dorey, what else are you going to do with a Sunday night?
Yeah. There is going to be in a couple of weeks. There is going to be a slightly different kind of episode.
Oh yeah.
Which
we might be a bit drunk.
We'll announce a little bit close to the time.
The sherbets.
But of course, we also want to know what you think of the show. Have you got any comics? Have you got any Kickstarters or crowdfunding or charity work or anything like that we need to be aware of? Please do let us know. There's several different ways you can do it. You can email us awesomecomicspod@gmail.com. Follow us on social media at awesomecomicspod on Insta, or at the awesomepod on X. And you may have heard us on the website awesomecomics.podbean.com. You may have heard us on Apple Podcasts, which a lot of the kids are doing these days. If you did, then leave a review and say something nice about the show. Helps get the word out about everything that we talk about on a weekly basis. And you never know who might be listening. We should really treat this. Every episode is someone's first episode. We try not to do too many in-jokes, but it feels like that's all we do sometimes. But
no, I think we tried to stay away from
it. We're also on Spotify, Amazon, Stitcher, Podnose, Podknife. What other networks are we on, Tony?
We're on the Pod Network, Penis Catapult.
All one word.
Little shout out to Mark's haikus from last week.
Yeah, lovely. And yes, where can people find us on, etc.? Tony.
Neveronanything.com or Tony EZ on Substack.
Nice. Dan.
I'm on socials sort of at Vanguard Comic, and you can read Vanguard at vanguardcomic.com.
Nice. You can find me on social media at Jester Diablo. If you want to join the conversation, we also have a Slack community full of our listeners today are part of it. There's so many different creators and listeners and comic readers. No matter who you are, there's a wonderful community of people on there, and there's lots of different chats all over.
And if you're like the guys today, if you've got a Kickstarter, I guarantee you'll get a few more clicks on it.
Yeah.
And you'll get a good discussion about it if you want to ask advice.
Yeah. It's constructive, and it is a community. So thank you to everyone on there for all the great work that they do. If you want to join it, get in touch with us, and we'll put you on the right path.
Get you in. Yeah.
And likewise, we also have acpgear.redbubble.com.
Yes.
I've seen a couple of people wearing tops. I think Alan was wearing a top.
Alan had one on earlier. Yeah, good lad. Yeah.
Rory Donald.
Rory was out for,
Rory, it was Rory, wasn't it? Yeah, God bless him, you go to a gig in one or something, is that right?
Yeah. See, our threads are so sexy you can wear them anywhere.
Yeah.
But
don't wear one to a job interview, I'll be honest with you.
What because it would be unfair to the other applicants because
Yeah,
they'll just
sometimes
they'll immediately get the
too
job.
cool.
Yeah, too cool.
And if there's any women on the panel or men, if you're a woman, you're going to
Yeah.
be super attractive to them.
You get this in school. When I left secondary school, I was given like a school tie, and the thing was, if you wear that tie in a job interview, they're like, "Oh yeah, he's one of the."
Oh mate, I come from the old school tie tradition. I'll tell you that now. Yeah.
I didn't do that. I was just kicked out into the cold, harsh streets.
We used to have to wear shorts and a cap, and we weren't allowed to wear.
You still do
our
that
own
now.
clothes.
You're the closest I've ever been to Angus from AC/DC.
Did they base just William books on you? It's just
They did.
Dante,
Yeah.
the hijinks
Well, you weren't
of what
allowed
used to get up to.
You used
But
to have
it's
to go
just
to
Willie's.
town in uniform. You used to have to go to town in uniform. You might as well just say, "Give me a kicking" written on your back.
Please bully me.
Perhaps I'll put that on a t-shirt. Anyway, thank you for listening, everyone. Everyone, we love you all. Keep reading those comics. Keep making those comics. And from Dan, Tony, and myself, have a brilliant week. And what else should they do, guys?
Stay awesome.
Stay awesome.
See ya.
See ya.
Bye.